So I want to turn to our next driver, that we want students to feel socially tied to peers, faculty, and the course. We want them to identify as mathematical learners and doers. And when we talk about social ties, we often talk about the sub-concept called belonging uncertainty. Now, when you enter a new social or academic setting, it's common to question whether you belong there. You may have looked around the room that you're in right now for cues, social cues, situational cues, just looking around at the different people to see, do I belong here or don't I? And if you are not targeted by stigma and not targeted by a stereotype in that setting, there's a good chance that your doubts about your belonging are short-lived, and eventually you do feel like you belong in that situation. However, if you are targeted by stigma or negative stereotypes in that setting, then your concerns can be heightened and prolonged. And unfortunately, that's the case for many of our students. Mathematics tends to be highly stereotyped for certain people from certain backgrounds. And it doesn't really matter if students' concerns about their belonging are from overt or covert actions in the past, so macro or microaggressions, the fact that somebody saw them through a lens of a stereotype, or they felt that somebody might be looking at them that way, or maybe that they're just not represented in their current classroom or in the future. That is to say, there's a lot of different reasons why students might feel uncertain about their belonging, and they all manifest in this questioning of whether they belong in many different situations, whereas other people might not question their belonging as often. So this uncertainty makes the meaning of negative social interpersonal events much more ambiguous. So let's say you're in a study group and your group member forgets to invite you, but you do feel like you belong. You might go, oh, they just forgot me, they must have been busy, it was an accident. You have a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe you said something dumb in class, an unfunny joke, or you weren't so helpful last time. But you feel like you could talk with your group and that you do belong, that there's nothing fundamental about you as a person that makes them not want you there. But if you are uncertain about your belonging, you do have doubts about your belonging, you may think that it's something about you personally that they don't want you there. So you might ask, do I belong here or don't I? Do they want me here or not? And we heard this from our students. There are many stereotypes and stigmas associated with being a community college student, for example. One student said, I'm embarrassed to be at community college because high school teachers said I would end up at community college because I'm lazy. Another student said, I don't have any friends here. In between classes, I sit in my car and see everyone talking to others, and I wonder, how did everyone else make friends? And even within our classrooms, students are wondering whether they belong. One person who withdrew from the class said, I felt that if I stopped coming, no one would even notice. And the students are not only saying things, they're acting in a way that makes them seem as if they don't belong there. So there's feeling about not belonging leads to actions, like withdrawing from the course. For example, we see that when students often answer this question, how often, if ever, do you wonder, maybe I don't belong here, with high uncertainty, even after a month in the class, a month after participating in their groups and getting to know their faculty member, they're still highly uncertain about whether they belong. 25% of them withdraw or fail to complete the first term. And of those who remain, 39% get a B- or above, compared to 55% in the lower no uncertainty group. So these feelings, these things these students are saying, have profound impact on their behaviors in class. If you feel like you don't belong there, why are you going to invest effort in that setting? And so our goal with productive persistence in the Starting Strong package is to proactively set up in the first month of the class an environment where students can help reduce those doubts about belonging. And we do that a lot by focusing on trust. And so trust isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling, it's also a cognitive leap. So you have an assumption that another party's intentions for you are good, and their expectation that you're going to be dealt with fairly. And trust is really important when we're working in groups. That we often have ambiguous interpersonal events, and we need to trust one another that we're going to help each other succeed in this class. We're all going to help each other learn math, and that we're going to support one another. And so we have a multi-pronged approach to promoting students' sense of belonging. Now, in the next session, Mary's going to talk a lot about the contract activity, which sounds really formal and boring, but it's not. In this, students commit to the behaviors that are necessary to succeed in the class, but they don't commit blindly. They actually commit and think about what might be difficult for me, what might be difficult for my group members that I could help them with, and that they can help me with something, and I can help other members of the class, and that we can all help one another to succeed. And we'll show you a video that helps you understand how this plays out in the classroom, how we can make these commitments to one another in such a way that they're inherently social and set up expectations that we can all succeed in this class. We also have 2 new routines in the QuantWay materials this term. The first is a faculty email routine to promote students to return to class after an absence. And on the face of it, seems very simple. It's a regular email routine in which faculty reach out to absent students. But the message, the content of the message is what's really crucial here. Whereas some people might reach out with punitive messages such that if you don't come to class, you're going to fail. Or, don't bother coming back because you missed too much. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to scare our students. We want to show our students that we missed you, we'll see you next time, and that we noticed you weren't there. And so you're telling your students, you're connecting with your students. You're telling them that you notice them, and you're connecting with them to promote this sense of trust, that you have good intentions toward them, and you also are going to treat them fairly. On the other hand, we also come at this through peer-to-peer interaction. So we have the student group noticing routine. And so in the first phase, students develop teams and team names, which they really get into. We've had some really great ones. Again, ask your faculty mentors who have tried this. My favorites, the Pilgrims. And so after they form team name, they get bonded that way. Then they start to contact their missing group members and encourage them to come back to class. What's great about this routine is, though we never encourage it, the absent students start contacting their group members ahead of time so that they don't even need to reach out. And sometimes they'll start arranging study groups. In fact, one faculty member who developed this routine saw her students hanging around in their group, the Pilgrims, for 2 years after the course was done. So that's how well bonded they were and how much of a relationship they had developed with one another. And so again, I want to show you some data because at Carnegie, we don't want to send you activities and routines without knowing that they can work and they can work across diverse conditions. So first, for the student group noticing routine, what we saw in the first test is in a classroom where this was the main change idea, main routine that was tried, 14 of 15 students took the final exam, 11 of those 15 passed the course, and she had a median attendance rate of 93.3%. So I just want you to see this wonderful graph here, that throughout the term it's consistently high with multiple instances of 100% of all her students coming to class. And she credits this largely to this support network that her students developed with one another. The faculty email routine also has great impacts on attendance. Now, when we look at attendance without any of these routines, faculty email routine or student group noticing routine, we see that as the semester goes on, it kind of goes down a little bit. So it starts really high and then goes below that 80% mark, and starts hovering around 70%, 60% as the term goes on. However, with only the addition of the faculty email routine, that's the only new thing she did, this faculty member in California saw that her attendance stayed the same throughout. So she helped her students stay strong throughout the entire semester just by reaching out to them and letting them know, I noticed you weren't there, I hope you come back. And we see that both of these noticing routines combined together have a great impact on students' attendance. So this is from one of our colleges this semester, and we notice that even after spring break, where we often fall out of habits, that her students kept coming back, and she credits this again largely to the trusting relationship that she's developed with her students and her students have developed with one another. And I just want one more graph to show you the importance of maintaining these type of routines. So the growth mindset activity I introduced to you earlier is a one-time activity. and to introduce students, and that you don't need to do that big of an activity as often. However, with these noticing routines, we see that it is important that you maintain them. So in this faculty member's classroom, he did a faculty email routine and student group noticing routine before spring break. So that's what those solid lines mean up top. However, after spring break, he fell out of the habit, admittedly, after spring break. He just wasn't keeping up on it, and he wasn't having his students contact one another. And so you see, before spring break, there are many trending points above that median line. However, after spring break, there are many below that line. And it's that, we're learning something here, that trust is something we need to maintain through our everyday interactions to help students feel like they belong and form social ties between us and them with their peers. So we also want to help students believe that the course has value, in addition to developing a growth mindset and social ties. So how many of you have ever heard a student say, "When am I ever going to use this?" So I'm guessing there are no hands, right? No, just kidding. This is a question that many people ask, and with good reason, because we need to know the answer to this question to stay motivated in our studies. And the key is we need to be able to answer this for ourselves. So we need to provide that space for students to reflect on the material and to think, when am I going to use this? When am I going to use this now? When am I going to use this in the future? Luckily, the QuantWay and StatWay materials have plenty of opportunities to allow students to reflect on this because our problems focus on real-world situations. And for students who don't think they can succeed, that is, they have low expectations about themselves, thinking and writing about the relevance of math can boost their interest in grades in math. And so we see that students who participate in this, they think that math is more relevant to their lives. In addition to focusing on short-term value, we also talk a lot about long-term value, which we call purpose. Now, this is Viktor Frankl, as many of you probably know. If you don't know, you can look him up right now. I can't see you. Even if I could, I wouldn't be, too put out, because he's very important. If you read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, it is life-changing. It has quotes like, "He who knows the why for his existence will be able to bear almost any how." And what he talks a lot about in his book, which also chronicles his experience in the Holocaust and how he survived that, in addition to his theory about the importance of purpose. But he talks about how this sense of purpose can help you persist and, reappraise the value of tasks in light of your long-term goals. And when we talk about a purpose for learning, we talk about two components. The first is a benefit to the self, so this will help me do something interesting. The second is it's going to have some contribution to the world beyond me. I'm going to make a positive difference. I can make an impact on the world. We call this self-oriented and self-transcendent. There's an article called Reflecting on Your Purpose for Learning in the Starting Strong package that you could try in your classroom if you're interested. And it was adapted from a study that David Yeager did with middle school students, where he saw that just reflecting on your purpose for learning, taking 30 minutes to do that early on in the semester, can increase your GPA in math and science for all these middle school students, especially those with a pre-intervention average below 3.0. GPA. And so, again, thinking on and reflecting on your purpose can help you reappraise the value of the everyday tasks you do in math and help you persist towards your long-term goals.